The snow fell like whispers, soft and endless, settling on the shoulders of the silent cowboy as he dismounted beneath the winter-gray sky. Elias Boone adjusted the worn brim of his hat and let his eyes settle on the strange tableau ahead. The girl stood barefoot in the snow, no older than 7, her toes blue at the tips, her arms wrapped around swaddled infant who made no sound. She didn't shiver. She didn't blink. She simply stared at him, as if she'd been waiting all her life. Behind her, inside an iron cage sunk into the frozen ground, a woman clung to the rusted bars, hands bloodied, wrists chained above her head. Her prairie dress was in tatters, face gaunt, yet her eyes were lit with a fire that even snow couldn't extinguish. Around them stood 6 men in black coats, collars up against the cold, wide-brimmed hats pulled low. They didn't speak either, just watched. The girl took one step forward, slow and steady, her breath visible in small, controlled puffs. "Can you take us, sir?" she asked, her voice hushed, as though any louder would shatter the air between them. Elias said nothing. His throat worked once, then again. He knelt, the snow crunching beneath his knee, and looked into her face. Big, round eyes, smudged cheeks, and something too old for her years living behind the dirt. The infant stirred weakly in her arms, and Elias's heart pulled in his chest like an old rope snapping under weight. He reached into his saddlebag and brought out a small leather pouch. Coins clinked as he set it gently in the snow. Then came a folded document, sealed with wax, land rights maybe, or a bond. The girl didn't reach for them. She just looked past him, toward the cage, toward the woman. Elias followed her gaze. The woman was watching him, chest rising fast, chains rattling lightly with each breath. Her lips parted, but she said nothing. "Not yet." One of the men in black chuckled. "That what you're here for, Boone? Gonna buy yourself a whore and her pups." Elias didn't rise, didn't look at the man. He peeled off his thick wool coat and placed it around the girl's shoulders. It swallowed her whole. Her small hands clutched the collar. The baby whimpered, finally. "I'll ask again," Elias said, his voice deep as river rock. "What's her bail?" The man stepped forward. Deputy Judge Sims. Elias remembered him, a bully draped in law. "Bail's $5, Sims said, spitting into the snow. "But that ain't all. She's due in front of the tribunal tomorrow. Interfering with judgment'll make you a witness, or worse. She's got a name." Elias asked, still kneeling. Sims snorted. "Sure. Mabel Hargrove. Widow. Tramp. Took up with the wrong kind. Store boy claims she seduced him, got herself in trouble. Made a stink. Folks wanted her gone. We did the Christian thing." The word hung there like smoke from a rotten fire. Elias looked back at the girl. "You Junie?" She nodded. "That your baby brother?" Another nod, slower. "You eat today?" She hesitated, then shook her head. Elias rose. Slowly, he walked past Sims, past the sneering line of men, and stood in front of the cage. The woman, Mabel, stared up at him, defiant despite the blood and dirt. Her lips were split, her knuckles raw. "You Mabel?" She swallowed hard. "That's right. I ain't here to save you," he said. "I didn't think you were." They looked at each other. The snow drifted sideways in the wind, collecting on her hair. A drop of water slid down from her temple. Snow melt or a tear, Elias couldn't tell. He turned and walked back to Sims. $5, he said, tossing the pouch at his feet. "And the papers cover the rest." Sims glanced at the coins, the documents. "You serious?" Elias only stared. "Fine," the judge muttered. "You can have her. But don't say we didn't warn you." He unlocked the cage with a rusted key and stepped aside. The door creaked as it opened. Mabel stepped forward on unsteady legs, and for a moment, Elias thought she might collapse. But she didn't. She reached out for Junie, who darted into her arms, nearly dropping the baby in her hurry. The infant let out a high, soft cry as their mother wrapped both children into what little warmth remained in her. Her knees buckled. Elias caught her. He didn't say a word, just held her upright, feeling how little there was left of her. Skin and bones, but still breathing, still alive. Sims called out behind them, his voice thick with disgust. "You'll regret it, Boone. Ain't no good come from carrying other folks' sins." Elias didn't look back. He led them to the horse, letting Mabel lean against him. Junie walked beside them, eyes wide, arms clutched tight around her baby brother. The town was silent except for the wind and the faint ring of chains falling onto snow. As he lifted Mabel into the saddle, Elias caught her watching him, her lips trembling. "You don't even know us," she whispered. "No," he said, "but I know cages." And with that they rode out, the cold wind at their backs, and the path ahead swallowed by white. But Elias felt something thaw inside him, something old and long buried. Something he hadn't felt since the day he walked away from his brother's hanging tree. The wind screamed louder once they left the edge of town, as if the place itself were howling its disapproval. Elias led the horse on foot, the reins in his gloved hands, boots crunching through snow that rose past his ankles. Behind him, Mabel clung to the saddle with one arm, the other wrapped around her baby. Junie rode in front of her, pressed tight, her face turned to Elias's back like she was afraid he might vanish into the storm. They said nothing. Words would have broken whatever fragile magic held them together in that moment. Not safety, not yet, but a pause in the cruelty. That was enough for now. By the time they reached the cabin, the snow had begun to lighten, falling like ash instead of blades. Elias shoved open the crooked door with his shoulder. Dust, wood smoke from winters past, and silence greeted them. He set to work without ceremony. Firewood, kindling. Sparks struck steel and flame bloomed in the hearth, licking the cold out of the room. He laid out a bedroll near the fire and gestured for Mabel to sit. She obeyed, though her limbs moved stiff as rusted hinges. Junie followed her mother, holding the infant with care that seemed far older than her 7 years. Elias ladled water from the barrel near the door, set it to warm. He found a can of beans, tore it open with a knife, and stirred it into a dented pot. The scent of warmth stirred something in the baby. He whimpered and rooted at Mabel's chest. Mabel looked down at herself, at the rags, the dirt, the wounds. "Turn around," she said softly. Elias did. When she was done nursing, she wrapped the baby in a cleaner piece of cloth from Elias's pack, and Junie helped hold him close. Mabel's hands still trembled. "Thank you," she said at last. He didn't reply. She stared at the fire a long while, then said, "They think I seduced that boy at the store. Said I trapped him. Truth is, he locked the door behind me. I screamed. Folks outside heard, but they looked the other way." Elias knelt by the fire, slowly feeding it. "Same folks who praised your hymns last spring." She gave a broken laugh. "The very ones." He nodded, not in agreement but in recognition. "I ain't a skin for your pity," she added quickly. "Good," he said, soft but steady. "I don't give it." Silence stretched between them again, but it was different this time. Less brittle. More like the hush after a thunderstorm, when everything listens. Junie drifted to sleep curled beside her brother, his tiny chest rising against hers. Elias offered Mabel a tin plate of beans. She hesitated before taking it. Her fingers brushed his. Her eyes didn't meet his, but he saw the shame crumbling behind them, brick by brick. They ate in quiet. When the knock came at the door, it wasn't loud. Just a hard rap, deliberate. Elias stood and reached for his rifle leaning against the wall. Mabel froze. Junie stirred. A voice outside called, "Boone, we know you're in there." Elias stepped toward the door, but didn't open it. "You travel far enough just to get frostbite." "Sims ain't done with her," the voice said. "That money you dropped ain't worth spit. She skips judgment, we lose face. You've got enough face to lose, I reckon. Step aside." Elias didn't move. Through the small cabin window, he saw the black coats again, 5 of them now. Their horses snorted clouds into the air behind them. He opened the door but kept the rifle lowered. The wind pushed in like an unwelcome guest. "I'm not giving her back," Elias said. "So unless you're here to share beans and bad memories, you best ride on." Sims wasn't there, but his deputy was. Younger, eager to prove himself. "You're obstructing justice." Elias didn't blink. "No, I'm answering to something higher than yours." The younger man's fingers twitched near his gun. Behind him, the others hesitated. Doubt crept in like fog. Then Junie appeared behind Elias, barefoot again, wearing his coat that dragged across the floor. She clutched her baby brother against her chest, her face pale but steady. The sight of her, half frozen, draped in a man's coat, standing beside her mother's protector, told the story better than any sermon ever could. One of the older men behind the deputy muttered, "Leave it. It's done." "But," the deputy began. "I said leave it." They turned one by one and disappeared into the trees like smoke scattered on wind. Elias closed the door, locked it. Mabel hadn't moved from the fire. Her hands covered her mouth. Her eyes glistened. "You stood for us," she whispered. He leaned the rifle back against the wall. "Didn't stand for you. I stood against them." She smiled then. Just barely. But it was the kind of smile that rewrites something in your bones. Later, when the fire dimmed to embers, Elias dozed off in the chair by the hearth. Mabel tucked a blanket around him. Junie slept beside the baby, his breath puffing gentle clouds. Snowflakes tapped the window like quiet reminders that the world still waited beyond. And for the first time in a long, bitter season, no one felt like they were about to be swallowed by it. Sometimes it's not the man who saves the girl. Sometimes it's the girl in the snow, holding a baby, who reminds a man that there's still something worth saving in this world.